Here we go. We are live. So, welcome to Coffee and Conversations with Champions. I have to do that to lighten the mood. Marichen, Mortimer, we spent the last 20 minutes making sure I get your name correct. How did I do?
You did quite well.
Okay,
Thanks,
not good.
Nick.
Okay,
I know
Marichen.
Marichen is a tongue twister.
Yeah, but it's not Marichen, it's Marichen. So
Yes.
basically, there we go. Marichen Mortimer, welcome to the show. Very excited to be chatting to you about your book. Really honored to have an exclusive opportunity to chat with you pre-book launch. So I know it's going to create a lot of interest and excitement for the book. And for people, you were telling me there's only 20 places left for the launch in Irene on the 8th of March. And
Correct.
those who can't make it, they will at least be able to join us online, share questions and comments. So, Marichen, I'm going to ask you just very quickly to give us an intro as to who you are.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you very much for this fabulous opportunity. I'm delighted to spend some time with you this afternoon and your listeners and viewers. So, the book came about. I'm going to share a little bit about my corporate history.
Mm-hmm.
I cut my teeth in the South African corporate world, working my way up literally from ground level, starting in heavy earth moving equipment manufacturing. Your Barlow's Caterpillar at that stage of the game. Very, very interesting field. Working in manufacturing. Then I spent some time in industrial and commercial property. I also spent some time in the mining industry. And all of this provided me with brilliant opportunity to really get to know how corporates work
Mm-hmm.
inside and outside. So I fulfilled several roles, and I think that also gave me different lenses through which to view corporate life. So ranging from strategy, HR, marketing, sales, customer relations manager, stakeholder engagement, and all of that provided me with very, very useful insights.
So,
And
sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
and just cutting my teeth in corporate South Africa, and then also working internationally with an international firm where, at the time that I was working with them, which was in the tech industry, we were in 85 countries around the world. So that gave me fabulous exposure to work with multicultural teams across 85 countries.
Sure, that's incredible. I mean, that's pretty much most of the world, nearly.
Correct.
I think you're like just like too short. North Korea and one other. Um, just chatting to you previously, and when we were prepping for this podcast, you mentioned as well a lot of experience early on in South Africa as it was becoming a democracy and moving in a new direction. Everyone was sort of finding their feet. Before we go into that, what I wanted to chat to you about is you focus on developing high performance leadership teams. How did your experience in the different roles in corporate, working and seeing different teams, help you refine your understanding and what really needed to be done to develop high performance teams?
Well, Nick, I think working in different companies, and those companies, as I mentioned, were all in different industries.
Mm,
So going through the developing the muscle to continuously be sensitive to the different countries one works in, the different socio-economical, political environments you have to operate as a company, and then also obviously with regards to the different dynamics that play itself out in a team, the different personalities, the different backgrounds, the different perspectives, and how one actually gels all of that together. I'm going to call it an alchemical mix to ensure that you can focus on a common goal. Typically, all companies at senior stakeholder level, you have a common goal that the company is driving, and to get people to focus in the right direction together whilst delivering high performance and remaining human in the process. I think that's also very key.
right. And I think that's such a great point of view and approach because when you say sort of the alchemy of putting all of these different teams
Yes.
together, when you're working with different sort of political environments, different work environments, and different teams, all of these different environments have different effects on people. And as those change and evolve, people have to change and evolve. How have you found the effects of the environment on members of teams and their performance?
Obviously, environments impact teams, can impact teams quite substantially. So, from a leadership perspective, it's so important that leaders lead the way, guide the way, and live the way.
Right.
With working with their team members, no one person in an organization can actually have the full functionality of pulling everything forward. It's a question of really working together. And where companies have invested the time, energy, and effort to actually get to know themselves as a team well, and where they've connected at a deeper level, it actually makes those conversations substantially easier. And I
Right.
think that's part of what my journey is about in terms of facilitating and guiding teams on my high performance leadership team journeys to be able to have those conversations in a meaningful way and in a way that's also sensitive to the company culture
Mm-hmm.
and taking into consideration the different perspectives of the various team members. It's by no means an easy task, though, I have to say.
Ab- Absolutely. I'm sure there's the analogy of herding cats that sort of comes very much to mind on this. But what have you seen within your work with different teams happen in terms of before you came in and sort of when you leave and then the ongoing process of that? How do they gel, work better together? How is the leadership empowered to do their job more effectively?
Okay. So, one of the CEOs that I had the pleasure of working, when I started working with them, they were ranked fourth in the market. And they decided to extend my contract for 2 years. And I was tasked with, obviously, with each organization that I work with, I get a briefing with regards to their team strategy, the company strategy, and how do we fit the people piece in that and then build that high performance team. And in the space of 2 years, they turned the company around from fourth place in the market to first.
Wow.
And I had to ask the CEO, I'm always asked, how do I measure the success of what I do? And she came back to me and said, you played a very large part. And in future, I would like you to use some of our statistics to say this is where the company was when you found us and this is where it was when you left us.
Right.
Because your work that you did with us played an instrumental part in our success.
There's no higher praise.
Yes, absolutely.
Within that, and I suppose just a question, even for myself actually to ask, do you think that companies value their employees enough? Do companies realize the untapped potential within their teams should they be led correctly and develop as high performance teams?
Nick, I think that's a very important question. I can't answer it for all companies, but I
I'm
must
not
be honest
claiming
with
it
you.
for myself, but yeah.
Yes. But I must be honest with you where companies approach me to do the work that I do. I must be honest with you, I've been very, very blessed to see
Mhm.
their intent because we do a chemistry check. Because of the nature of the work that I do, I have to work closely with the leadership as we craft the journeys. And I've been fortunate to see that where I'm engaged, that the companies are really sincere about unlocking the potential of their people. Because for them, the penny has dropped to say that when we work closely with our people, we unlock their potential and we align the unlockment of their
Mhm.
potential with where we need to drive the organization or the company. There's synergy that then starts taking place. And to see the synergy actually unlock is magical, actually.
Absolutely. My follow on question onto that, and I think it's a very, very obvious question, and any executive could answer it, even, middle level management, anyone could answer this. Are the employees the most important asset within the company? And I think it's easy to say yes, but do companies actually realize it? Do they think maybe our IP is more valuable, our physical asset base is more valuable, our client base is more valuable? Are the employees the most valuable asset?
I think if we take 2020 as an example, and I know it's an extreme example of what happened worldwide during COVID, is I think that was a big wake up call as well for companies that might not have realized how key the people aspect of business is, because without them, I think many companies would have shut their doors, because it was dedicated people that showed up, be it online or however each different company had to structure themselves during those times. But I saw dedicated people show up day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out.
Mhm.
And in some instances, companies' performance actually even picked up. And I think it's just people's driven commitment to keep the lights on.
Right. And do you feel that then the staff also have a responsibility, a sense of ownership in the company, in what they do for their position and their teams? You're saying fighting to keep the lights on.
Yes, I think in those years, 2020, 2021, even into 2022, most definitely what I've witnessed, absolutely yes.
Right. How do you see leadership evolving post COVID, post 2021, 2022? Because now also there's a big drive. JP Morgan started that with everybody comes back to the office. It's not even a balance between work from home and office. So leadership have big challenges ahead of them on top of running the business in this chaotic world.
Yes, I'm fortunate in many of the industries that I work in, there's still some hybrid, which is relevant to the industry. And I know the people that are working in the hybrid environments, they thrive and they enjoy that. And they would like that to remain intact. I also see in some of the industries that I work in that people are full time back at the office. So if you find yourself as a leader in a hybrid environment, it's always important to ensure that your people are engaged, that they feel as part of the corporate culture, that they actually feel connected to the corporate culture and they don't become disconnected. So that's something to guard against. And then always track performance. If performance remains satisfactory and even thriving, then there's no reason to change the model.
Mm-hmm.
Where companies are back physically, and because that's the nature of the business and the way that they operate, I think they were first up met with a bit of resistance because people actually constructed their lives to be work from home. So that's a huge adjustment. And I think the companies that went fully back, that were not fully back during COVID, because I know in some industries people never actually worked virtually,
Mm-hmm.
but for those that did and have had to go back now to being physically present, I think it's a big adjustment.
Right.
And I would imagine that companies are even still adjusting and really listening closely to the impact on people and to how do they go about navigating that.
So, from your perspective, as someone who develops, builds, and maintains high performance teams within companies, or at least empowers that, right? How vital is it for companies during this transition period to be working with you, to be working with someone who is developing the teams, has the expertise and the experience? And I think even for your existing client base, the knowledge and experience of what that culture is like pre and post COVID.
I think for the clients that, well, my team sessions are typically in person. So even if they were hybrid,
Mm.
typically the clients would come in. There's only been one or two situations where I'm working with clients that are spread across many countries. And we work a combination of virtual, and some of the sessions are just so key and strategically important that everybody gathers together at a meeting point and we're all physically together.
Right.
Because to build really deep level of connection, if you have large strategic goals that you're driving, that just actually starts to show further down the line. And we've actually seen that happen time and time again. So the companies where, with my sessions, they dedicate the time and space for
Mm-hmm.
people to be physically present, they actually get the benefits
Right.
in triplicate, if I can be so cheeky to say that.
100%. Absolutely. I think within that, companies that aren't working with coaches for team development, maintaining those high performance teams, because in reality it's developing the team, but it's developing the leadership to do that job, to take what you teach and move in. How important is it? How vital? I mean, it's obvious that it is with the changes that we're going through in corporate now between work from home, hybrid, and then back to the office with those big shifts where you are going to have staffs. I don't think there's anything that's happened in the business world to such a degree that's going to be so disruptive on personal lives, because now suddenly you can't fetch your kids 2 days a week. You can't do these
Yeah.
things. You can't do, so now you have to readjust. How important is it for leadership within companies to be prepared to deal with what's happening to the staff with these changes?
Nick, I think it's essential. It's really, really essential. But it's a question that each senior leader has to actually pause and ask themselves, does this matter to me? Does it matter to the team? And do I have the necessary resources to actually engage somebody like myself to help us facilitate our journeys and to help us make the transition? And also, we faced in an environment where we're heading for some of the biggest disruptions already with regards to artificial intelligence. And in many instances, people have not even completely comprehended what that can possibly mean. And we are discovering that on a day to day basis of what that would mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very, very important for leaders to actually invest the time and effort.
It's a cost benefit exercise where you don't realize the real cost, as a sense, because that I get. Because if you're going to say, right, everybody's coming back to work, and then where you say you need measurables to track performance, is it satisfactory? If performance starts to drop, do you then go back to a hybrid model? What is the cost of that? What cost have you incurred to bring everybody back to work? It has to be very much a focused decision, not so much around, well, we want everyone in the office so I can keep an eye on them. I know this is a point that we're harping on, but I think it really is coming down to the leadership understanding their teams. And from the work that we've done, that's the sense that I get. It's the building of the high performance team through the understanding of your team and the individuals within that team and their role within the company.
And Nick, I think my journeys, that's why my journeys are crafted. They literally run like a double dual track. The one track is where we focus on spending time as a team together and we're building the team. And simultaneously, I actually work with each individual member of the team and we're focusing on their leadership development because a team can only move as fast as its slowest member, right?
Yeah.
So it's super important that you create a psychologically safe environment where people feel comfortable and where people can actually bring their best quality thinking into the room. Because after all, what are you paying people for? You're also paying them for their quality thinking. And
Absolutely.
people's quality of thinking drastically improve when they feel psychologically safe and they know their colleagues, and through that process they then actually start to share more openly, and you don't cultivate an environment where there's artificial harmony. You know, when people say we're all okay when they're not
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Sure.
and we all get along well, but they don't actually get along well, because when I leave the room they actually have to make things happen.
Right.
That's why we also track, we action track what are the things that they take after each session, what do they implement, and what are the changes and the evolution that they can actually observe and experience. It has to be experienced from one session to the next.
Because that experience accelerates buy-in. Right? When
Yes.
you're having a great time, you see the benefit, you want more and you want more. Uh, I suppose it also comes to the question where they're saying we're okay or we're getting along well. What does that even mean? Because what it might mean to them is not what is necessary for the
Yes.
business to prosper. But I wanted to go back a little bit, talking about leadership and sort of unique individuals. You have quite a unique history within corporate. Starting out when we spoke originally, you mentioned I mean some pretty incredible mentors at a very young age. Also coming in as a woman into a very a male-dominated industry, and then trying to be taken seriously because it's and I think there's even more pressure one puts on oneself to perform, and pressure from others because they're not used to having you in the room, particularly the boardroom. So I just wanted to chat about a little bit of your earlier life before we move on to the book. So some incredible mentorship, some incredible very early on work experience. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Thanks, Nick. Yes, I think in my very first job, it was an elected position, and I was responsible for projects that were run, business projects that were run on 27 campuses in South Africa. And we were very privileged because we
What
had
time frame was this? What was the era? You can put a
the
year on
era
it.
was just before 1994.
Hmm. Okay.
And at that time, South Africa, as you might remember, was highly political and we were going through massive changes.
Hmm.
But we were fortunate as a national body in the organization that we had mentors, both national at the national advisory level and also our board of trustees, which consisted of stalwart corporate leaders. And they guided us as we had to navigate very, very stormy political waters. Although we came from a business perspective, you have to deal with the environment that you find. And it sensitized us sufficiently, yet we could deliver on what we had to deliver on. So, very, very, very useful. And it actually stood me in a brilliant stead further on in my career to actually say, as a leader, you will always have blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
There's no ways that you could have walked, and if you work across several countries, unless you're living inside a country, you don't understand and even can comprehend all the multitude of smaller nuances. You're not going to have access to that. So I always, from the outset, actually ask teams that I work in that we extend grace to each other
Mm-hmm.
and we help each other to close so called blind spots. Because making assumptions that people know all the nuances, I think, is not mature, if
Mm-hmm.
I can say that.
Yep.
Because with maturity, you realize you can't expect people when you're navigating multiple cultures and multiple dimensions with regards to views and diversity and all of that. So if you can actually stand together and help each other and cover for each other's blind spots. And if I say cover, I actually mean educate, inform, lean into. If you see this person doesn't know that, well, have that person's back and actually lean into that and have the conversation. So even as a facilitator, I never stand on a platform and say, I know it all. It's not my modus operandi. I very much roll up my sleeves, get in alongside the teams that I work with, submerge myself in the industry as best I can, submerge myself in their company culture, and then work alongside the team leaders and the team members to craft the best solutions possible for them in that given moment in time.
Right. So, and that brings me perfectly into the next question before we get to the book. What has to happen, or what is the company's need when they decide to make that call to you? What are they phoning you for? And what is your role? What are you doing within the company?
So typically, companies will phone me when they're faced with change, challenging changes, when they're going through mergers and acquisitions, and it means that the culture of the organization is going to change. Sometimes they also contact me simply if it's a new leader leading a team, and he or she wants me to actually really bed the team down
Mm-hmm.
and craft a culture for the team, a high performance culture with the team and with a new leader. And sometimes a leader just feels that team members have become disengaged, that they lack good communication, they're not able to have courageous conversations, and they actually just want to revitalize. So there's a number of reasons that I get called in. And sometimes it's just simply there's escalated conflict.
Okay.
And my process can actually help to address that, provided people step into the space with sincerity
Hmm.
and obviously guide them along those lines.
Right. And if there's less sincerity stepping into the space within certain individuals, you're able to work with that and bring
Yes.
out their sincerity through the results, right?
They have,
Mm.
yes,
Mm.
absolutely. And we track results because I think the process, I often get asked, what are the results? So I say, check the performance results
Hmm.
of the specific business unit. And then, secondly, I also look at the cultural results because most organizations have culture surveys, and you should see an improvement in the culture surveys.
Right.
And then finally, just in terms of the team's engagement, we do a assessment of the team in terms of their levels of engagement, trust, taking accountability and responsibility, conflict management, and all of those factors that we measure before. In a 12-month journey, we'll look at the in the middle and then towards the end.
Right. Phenomenal. So let's chat a little bit about the book now. We don't want to give away too much because this is an exclusive pre book launch. It's not the book launch. And I'm really looking forward to being able to chat to you on the 8th of March at the venue about this. And I'm going to ask a couple of difficult questions. Really, the difficult question is going to be about some of your favorite parts of the book. And we've spoken about this many times. And this book is your baby. You know,
Yes.
it's your child. So to say you have certain favorite parts of a child, I think could be quite a challenge. And but we'll get to that. Give us a brief outline about the book. What is the book about, and then who is the book for?
Okay. So the book is called Building High Performance Teams for Success, and it is a practical guide of how you'll go about doing that. I do recommend in the book that you obtain the services of somebody like myself that specializes in building high performance teams. And I think maybe just a little bit about that. The reason why I ask that is that it's super useful to have somebody that is independent,
Hmm.
that can actually have that bird's eye view of the entire team throughout the process, and whose intention is to really pull together all the little pieces so that it becomes one unified unit as they move forward.
I think
Whereas if you're sitting inside the team, you don't have that objectivity.
I think the objectivity is one thing, but it's also that there's not those pre-existing relationships,
Yes.
pre-existing prejudices to other people. Maybe you had a bad interaction or a bad first meeting with someone that's affected it. So the independence is vital because it gives you
Yeah.
a clean slate.
Because I always say to clients, I have the best job in the world because their individual and collective success is my success.
Sure.
So I truly have their backs with regards to that. So the book actually really looks at what are the building blocks in order to craft a high performance team journey. And it really gives you some reflection questions after each chapter. It gives you the building blocks in which to do it. So it's really a fantastic practical guide. And it took me 9 years to finally get to this point. I think two of my client teams just said to me, "So when is the book coming?" And that was what pushed me over the edge finally.
So to chat about that, how much bullying came from your clients to get the book done? Because there's a comment I have on this.
No, they bless their souls. They I shared with two specific teams that I was working with at the time that I need to do this, and I said it's my first book built up in a similar way. I was
Mhm.
traveling in Southern Africa, and in fact, I was in Namibia with some clients, and it was the third client of that week that just said to me, "So when is your book coming out? Because you talk, and I can just see myself. I'll benefit from reading the book." And then I actually went and did a bush retreat and wrote the first book. So this time round, I realized I cannot do it on the side of the desk as a project, and I will just have to retreat again. And this time I retreated to the coast, and
Fabulous.
I finally put pen to paper and finalized it. But the clients were actually encouraging me more than bullying, I have to be honest. I just started feeling guilty.
Yep. So then the reason that I say that is the sense I get that because your clients understand your value. And in them saying, please write the book, please write the book, please write the book, what they're really saying is more people need and deserve to hear the message, to hear the lessons, and to share in your expertise.
Yes, no, I appreciate that, Nick, and that is quite true.
Yeah, they're 100% spot on. So we've spoken about who within the corporate should be reading this book.
Literally everybody that's part of a team, to be honest with you, because you can look at the book as a member of a team. You can look at the book through the leadership eyes. You can look at the book through how do I craft my own team together. So it's literally for anybody that's part of a team.
Right. And we also then, by the way, yeah, another question from this before I go on to my next question, because I have so many, and like this is going to be my hardest job because there's so much to chat about, is to managing the questions. How does an employee take this book to their manager, to their executive, to say, hey, I think you should read this?
If the employee has a good relationship with a manager and they've actually consumed the book and read it and they've received good value from it, and there's something that resonates with them to say, sure, as a team, we can actually benefit if we implemented something like this. And I would like my manager to read it and then share, and let's open a conversation around it, perhaps, and say there's some of these things as a team that we don't do that we can actually benefit from doing, which will make the leader's life easier as well. So
Right.
let's not forget, if the leader empowers his or her team, it actually makes the leader's job a lot easier.
And that is something I think that is so overlooked and so misunderstood that the more you empower and enable your team, the better your team performs, the easier your job is. One of the lines that I read, I'm just trying to think where, said that you should be able to take off 3 months as a leader and have no one notice. That's when you know you're doing a good job. You know,
Yes.
where it
Yes.
runs. So you need to work always as a leader. You need to work yourself out of a job.
That's true. It's
Yeah.
true. I had one of my leaders that spent a year and a half doing exactly that
Right.
and really focusing on empowering his team to make sure that they could operate if he wasn't there.
Sure. Phenomenal, and that worked well.
It worked well. In the
Excellent.
beginning, it
Yeah.
was like leopard crawling on their stomachs over gravel road,
Yeah.
but in the end, I had the privilege of just being able to stand back and see the team members flourish and really just have the conversations and manage difficult board discussions, difficult exco discussions, and they did brilliantly.
Oh, fantastic. And I think it's a wonderful gift to give them because you also free up mental capacity for the leadership to steer, focus, and drive and protect the business even more. The less
Very
you have
much
to
so.
manage, the more you can lead the direction of the company, not just leading the team. When we spoke earlier, we also touched on the value of this book for not only university students, but for high school students and for teachers. And if we could just touch on some of those points, what would the value be for varsity students and for high school kids with this book?
Well, varsity students would typically find themselves as part of a sports team, part of if they're part of the management team of, for example, a hostel,
Mm-hmm.
very beneficial. And obviously, if they're heading into a place of work, that will prepare them quite well because they would have actually thought about some very key leadership concepts.
Right.
And if you're looking at the schoolgoers, they're part of sports teams, they're part of debating teams, they're part of social teams. And if they're looking at some of the youngsters that I see, they do amazing, amazing things. And if they find themselves on project teams where they're building things, all of this could be valuable because it will make them reflect to say, how well do we communicate? How well do we manage conflict amongst ourselves? and even youngsters in school going age. There's also politics involved with youngsters. And how do they navigate difficult conversations? And how do we remain objective? And how do we deal with facts? And
It,
how do we actually create a safe psychological space that's filled with sincerity and driving high performance? So we keep our eye on the goal and we manage the goal and we don't politicize the individual.
mhm. Yeah. I think just from this discussion, the sense that I'm getting, this is something actually parents should be looking at getting for their high school kids, and for the university students, because even forget the sports teams and the different teams that you take place. You know, you're working on a project. You've got a report. You've got a project. Your school class on its own is a team. How do
Yes,
you
correct.
operate in that? How do you fit in? How do you manage different conflicts, manage misunderstandings? I think high school is absolutely terrifying, and then they dump you into varsity again, where maybe you finally became the big shot in high school, and now in varsity you're not even a fish in the pond, and those type of things. So is it something parents should actually be looking at, getting their kids to read, just to equip them better to function with other people?
Yes, Nick, I mean, you opened that in our conversation that we had, because I must be honest with you, I didn't originally think about that. But absolutely, 100% yes.
So I think corporate is really just an extension of university, which is an extension of high school, which is an extension
Yes,
of primary school. And
yes,
if you have to develop those skills in corporate, you may have struggled then in university and in high school and primary. So if you can start, let's even get this into primary schools. Start at that level, developing the skills. By the time you get to university and to corporate, you're going to be very competent as a team member or as a team leader, or both.
Yeah, I was watching some footage of little children in China, preschoolers.
Mm.
And this particular school, and I don't know how prevalent it is, but this particular school, the youngsters, this is preschool. They were absolutely being busy, kept busy, being so creative in the way that they were cooking and they were doing physical, active tasks, but life skills, but so incredibly well that I thought to myself, imagine if all kids had that kind of exposure.
Right.
It really will set them up for life in a very, very different way because they are self empowered 100% to look after themselves.
Which is such an asset, probably one of the greatest assets you could give your kids, is that
Yes,
ability.
absolutely.
I think if we look at from a teacher's point of view, teachers should be coming on the 8th of March and joining the conversation and listening and watching. Operating within a school for teachers, this should be something that should become required reading, because the fact that you teach kids how to interact, and I think I'm passionate about this, and I mention it because at school, particularly primary school, I was very much a loner. I was going through some challenging times and not knowing how to interact with people, not knowing how to talk to my fellow students and not annoy them, not show off or not brag or not make up stories, trying to fit in desperately. If you have that understanding from this book and how to work, by the way, you have to write a kid's book version of this. I'm just putting that out there.
Yes.
No
No
bullying,
taken.
but no, that's just the life skills that you can give someone can be a game changer for their quality of life. And this is the sense that I get from this book, because to be high performance within a team means you are a high performing individual, and a high performing individual is someone that is able to get the very best out of what their lives have to offer.
Yeah, and I think what I want to underline here is that with high performance, I do not mean inhumane.
Yeah.
Absolutely, at the heart of all of this is leadership maturity, and with leadership maturity, I'm referring to developed levels of personal awareness or self awareness and develop levels of social awareness so that It's really the EQ piece that I'm referring to here. So, can you imagine if the kids that you went to school with could see you and saw how you battled, and in a kind way reached out to you and just slowly but gently brought you to the inner circle without you feeling weird or different, the way that people get labeled, so that you could be you, but you could actually start to relax, because oftentimes we wear so many masks, right? And the masks that we use are there to cover up for where we feel insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Absolutely.
corporate environment can be quite cutthroat with regards to that. It can be quite lethal. So that's often why leaders would say to me, but Marichen, how do I make myself vulnerable? I don't want to make myself vulnerable. If I make myself vulnerable, I'm actually making myself open for attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely can understand that. If the environment in which they find themselves is not a healthy environment, then I fully understand that, because they have to play the politics. But if you can go a small way of creating an environment that's healthy, or healthier, at
Mm-hmm.
least start there, is that people can be more sincere, they can be more open, they don't have to feel threatened, and feel insecure the whole time in terms of, am I showing up in the right way? Do I speak the correct English? If this environment requires a certain English, do I have the right accent? Will they judge me if I don't have the right accent? Am I do I suffer from an imposter syndrome? There's so many of those aspects that come into play, and we cover whatever is relevant for that team, um, where they are at in the team journey whilst we're moving through that. And the more open people are, the more they can relax into the journey, and the more they can actually show up as themselves, obviously within respect and all the corporate
Mm-hmm.
norms, is that you actually get so much more out of people. And that's when you start unlocking the huge potential that lies there.
Right.
The actual potential, because the masking is a lot of the noise that takes place in the corporate world.
Mm.
And people then play the masks.
And those are
And
huge energy drains and
it's a
resource
huge energy
drains.
drain, huge. And I always say to leaders, do you want your team to focus on what they need to do and do it in an effective and efficient way? Or do you want them to focus their energy on managing corporate politics?
Mm-hmm.
What is the most impactful and where is the most value add?
Absolutely.
And how they answer that question is a good indication if they're ready for me or not.
Where you can be shifting a toxic environment into a healthy environment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you can drastically upgrade the output and the quality of the output of the team without having to bring in any extra resources, just by maximizing the team that you have and enabling them to be in a non-toxic, safe environment where they can be honest and vulnerable, and
Yes.
have honest conversations where, listen, I'm not, as a within my business, I think that's something that I've tried to stress, that nothing is more valuable for me than one of my coaches saying to me, I'm not feeling well, can I go home and rest? So absolutely, go home, sleep, feel better, we'll carry the load for you, because if you're here and pretending to be okay, the client's not getting an optimal
Mm.
experience, and you're both going to feel bad at the end of the day. So for me, that on my very small, not corporate level yet, but
Yes.
that's sort of my understanding of the
But you know,
value.
Nick, every little bit like that, what you're sharing with me now, every little bit that you do actually goes a long way, not only buying the loyalty, in your
Mm.
instance, of your coaches, but also creating an atmosphere um, where your environment that you've created say that you actually matter. And because you matter, if I have to carry you today, tomorrow you're going to be carrying me. You never
That's
know,
it. Yeah.
right? Because we operate in such a complex world. It is such a complex world that we operate in, that I think it would be f- absolutely wrong of us for a minute to think that it's a me environment. It's
Yeah.
definitely
No,
not.
absolutely not. We cannot exist as an individual within a team and within a team environment. Could you share one or two of your favorite parts of the book? or as a favorite lesson that you would like to share, a lesson that you would like to gift to our viewers?
There is several favorite parts of the book, if I can say that, and in actual fact, each one of the chapters, whilst writing it, made me reflect on the teams that I've worked in with. And there's such beautiful sort of pearls of wisdom that were shared along the way. And even now, the book finished and at the printers as we speak,
Sure.
I even now, because I spent 2 intense days with a CEO and his team on Thursday and Friday. And already there, I was developing new material for my next book because something like this is always, you're always evolving, you're
Mm.
always evolving, and the information and knowledge is always evolving. And each individual should always be involving. And me as a being a privileged position to do what I do is I always notice, okay, this is where the conversations are evolving towards. And these are some of the potential levers that leaders need to be aware of
Hmm.
and how they actually mix their chemistry in with the team. So, to go back to your question, Nick, is that one of the favorite gems is the work that we do when we go and work with horses.
Okay.
Because when we work with horses, I spend a day with the teams towards the end and sometimes the last session, where we actually work with the horses. And they don't go horse riding, but we work with the horses because the horses actually form like a mirror
Hmm.
that the leader can actually become aware of their non-verbal communication. And the horse doesn't care if you're male or female or tall or short or introvert or extrovert or whatever all the labels that we give ourselves. The horse doesn't care. The horse wants you to show up as the leader. So confident, clear communication. You need to be able to read the horseanality, as we call it, not a personality, but the horseanality, and you
Love
need
it.
to be able to adjust your energy. So if you're working with somebody that's experienced, that knows the way, you need to expend less energy. And it's more a question of connecting, updating, and guiding and doing that piece. If you're working with somebody that's new to the business or new to the team, you need to spend more energy
Right.
to share the culture, to understand the individual better, to land the person within the team culture. So when we work with the horses, those messages that I've been landing experientially throughout our process, but they completely land. And then you can see people realize, okay, if I operate with a lack of energy, that lack of energy is going to come across, whether I'm virtual or physical, doesn't matter. People are going to feel, oh my gosh, I'm drained. This leader is not having enough energy here. I'm going to fall asleep. So all of those messages then become actual practical lived experience.
Sure. That's phenomenal.
And
I
I've,
love that.
I've seen how people shift after that. Well, they have the opportunity to shift. I always say, you will make the changes that you are ready to make. But stretch yourself at least 20% outside of your comfort zone. Because that's at that space we feel alive. And our souls become alive because we feel challenged.
And that's really where our growth happens, right? Is outside of our comfort
Yes.
zone. What a wonderful, wonderful message. Is there anything that you would like to say that we can sort of wrap up on in terms of people coming through to watch? Any shout outs you'd like to give, any thank yous, or any sort of other message you'd like to share? Because I think that last piece, the wonderful, wonderful understanding of what you do.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, I will definitely like to obviously give a shout out to every single individual that's been involved in getting my book to its stage. Much appreciated. And then to absolutely all my clients everywhere, I've learned so much from you. And I would love to see, if not in person, at least join us online and just come and spend a good hour with us. And we'd love to hear from you.
There may be some bubbly, I heard a rumor. So
Yes.
I think that I absolutely love that message. And one thing I'd like to mention, because we went to go and do a site inspection for the live stream, you've chosen such a beautiful venue on the lake. I mean, Irene itself is beautiful, but this is such a beautiful venue. It could have been, in a room at the Santon Convention Center or at Gallagher or at, why did you pick such a beautiful venue?
Nick, for me, place matters.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my small way, wherever I find myself, where it's at the client's at the company's premises, or whether we have the good fortune to go outside of the company, I always look for an environment that lends itself to peace, tranquility, and nature, so that people actually can afford themselves the opportunity to just step out of their normal hustle and bustle
Mm-hmm.
and relax, decompress. In my sessions, we have no cell phones, no laptops. So it's really about connecting and having true, authentic conversations, because those are the invaluable things that move people forward. And hence, my choice of Irene was a bit of a no brainer.
Right. It's a lovely, lovely venue, and the location. You open those curtains, and it's wow. This beautiful lake. The room itself is magnificent. The venue is magnificent, and something I'd like to share with you. The sense that I've gotten having worked with you over the last couple of weeks towards this book launch, I get the sense that you've chosen this venue as a way of honoring your clients and as a way of honoring those who will be coming. And then it just occurred to me, I think that you've written this book as a way of honoring your clients and a way of honoring future clients and those who wish, those who want to look for a better way.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Nick. You're 100% spot on. Sweet spot. It's there for my clients to just, it's my thank you to them.
That's it. It's a thank you to them. Fantastic. Oh, Marichen, thank you so much. You see, it only took me the podcast to get the pronunciation right. Ooh, no, but
You did it brilliantly, Nick.
thank you. Wanted to say thank you for your time. Thank you for coming to share. Thank you for this opportunity to share this story with our listeners, with the world. We're really looking forward to the launch and enabling you to share your story with so many more people. I think this book is going to make a profound difference, not only to executives and to leadership within corporate, but I really strongly, as a kid who had a hard time in school and didn't understand how to fit in and be part of a team, and even at college, at Technicon, this is something that every parent should be buying for their kid, reading to them as a bedtime story. As a parent, you can use this as your developmental tool, but you can enable your kids to develop as well. I think it's absolutely vital.
Thanks so much, Nick. And thank you so much to all the listeners. I really, really appreciate it. And it was a lovely day that I met you, Nick. Who would have said we would be here?
It
So
was
thank
absolutely
you.
fantastic. Was this as scary as you thought?
No.
Yay! Right, thank you. I'm going to end the stream and then I'll chat to you once that ends. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
And please join us, ladies and gentlemen, for the book launch for Marichen Mortimer. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. 8th of March on this channel live. And we're going live at 1 p.m. South Africa time. Am I correct? 2 p.m. 2 p.m. South Africa time. So the stream will be up and running about 15 minutes before that. We will be taking live questions and doing our best to answer them in the time that we have available. So, because I know as much as your clients and friends are going to want you on the stage answering questions, they're going to want you off the stage so they can say congratulations and talk to you directly as well. One last thing before we go, not something that I wanted to forget, but something I thought of. You mentioned you also do online. So if there are clients internationally that are looking at working with you, it's not restricted to local. So if there's Dubai-based companies, Dubai is growing at an amazing rate, the UAE or Europe or the States or the East, wherever, they can just reach out and get in touch with you.
100% thanks, Nick. Yes, I already coach across 12 countries.
Okay, fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. All right. We're going to end there and I'll chat to you off camera. Thank you.
Thanks.